Goku wouldn't dare emit the Kamehameha wave attack from there. He'll destroy the Earth if he dies.
Hello everyone, this is Poohead189, and today I decided to give a breakdown on a pretty niche topic. I've covered most of the basics of the series, though soon I plan on tackling more of the Buu saga. But I wanted to touch on a topic that is fairly underutilized and pretty confusing to many newcomers to the series, and that is how strong one must be to destroy a planet, and all of the factors that go into the destruction of one. Because in Shonen, even though power scaling can get pretty big, Dragon Ball is fairly unique in that most characters, and even in the middle of the series, are planet busters. Now, firstly, let's begin with power. And that's somewhat tricky, because we need to acknowledge something about ki and ki manipulation. You see, once you reach a certain threshold of power, the destruction of ki does not indicate its strength. For instance, both King Piccolo and Recoome can blow up a mountain, right? Yet, if Recoome did it, it would be much more dangerous for anyone in the blast, even if the blast radius was not larger. But why is that? Well, the answer is simple. It's because Recoome controlled the destructive capability of the blast, but not the actual power of the ki. See, this is the reason Kid Buu was much more dangerous than Super Buu, despite the fact that Super Buu was stronger than Kid Buu. Kid Buu did not lower the amount of destruction his ki blasts could do, which is why his very first act was to attempt to blow up the Earth. Kid Buu really did not care, whereas Super Buu was not so insane or destructive. He had things to prove, he could speak actual dialogue. Kid Buu was a wild animal. Now, the first time we ever see a planet in true danger from a character that is desperate or unhinged enough to try it is Vegeta and his Gallic Gun. And as noted in both the manga and in the Daizenshuu, his power level is 18,000. We don't really know the lowest power level one could have in order to blow up a planet. We also need to acknowledge some planets are smaller and larger than others. Though oddly enough, gravity does not play much of a part in that. In the Dragon Ball universe, gravity acts differently than it does in our own. A planet's size does not necessarily increase or decrease its gravity, like it does in our universe. Now, it is possible that planet Vegeta was 10 times larger than planet Earth or Namek, which gives it 10 times their gravity, but no one ever states that. They just state that Vegeta has higher gravity. And then we go to the afterlife, of course, which is still connected to the main universe in its own way, and King Kai's small planet has the same gravity as planet Vegeta. And we know Pui Pui's planet also had 10 times gravity as well, and it's the same thing in the hyperbolic time chamber or the room of spirit and time. So either gravity is a different kind of phenomenon in the Dragon Ball universe, or all planets with 10 times Earth's gravity are like factory made to be the same size. They can somehow also contain life, and are also just as dense as one another, because it's not just the surface area but the mass itself that is supposed to make gravity in our universe. And then with the time chamber and King Kai's planet, I don't even know how you can, maybe just magic you can explain it. I think the first answer, though, is much more likely, frankly. Gravity's source is just different in the Dragon Ball universe. And if that is the case, then we really don't know the size of planet Vegeta or planet Namek versus planet Earth. But that would determine how powerful one needed to be in order to blow it up, though, their size. And of course, we need to acknowledge these are terrestrial planets and not gas giants. Anyway, while Earth is probably one of these smaller planets, Vegeta's blast was not going to blow it up immediately, if it hit, because that would have killed him too. He was likely hoping to just obliterate Goku and have his Gallic Gun hit the planet's core, and as it destabilized, he would take his Saiyan pod and escape before it exploded. Now, it's hard to tell if one needs to have an 18,000 power level to blow up a planet the size of Earth, and honestly, Vegeta was likely even weaker at the time, as he had just gone through extended combat with Goku. So, how powerful does one need to be to blow up a planet? Well, I've heard it said that someone needs to be like around 5,000, but that's just a fan theory. Nappa's blast at Krillin when Krillin went to help Tien was the first time I can think of when a character was scared about the potential damage a blast could do to the Earth as a whole, as the crater appeared to have no bottom. But it also depends on if you go with the Daizenshuu power level of Nappa, which is 4,000, or my interpretation of him being closer to 7,000. But even then, it was not a planet buster blast, just something that made the characters reflect how powerful a blast was compared to its damage to the Earth. A great example are Frieza's 2 planetary destructions, for Vegeta and Namek respectively. Frieza was his first form when he destroyed planet Vegeta, using only one finger to create his supernova death ball. Then we see final form Frieza create a different death ball, and that fails to destroy Namek immediately. And also to harken back, it would be somewhat weird for planet Vegeta to be so much larger than Namek if gravity acted the same, yet he destroyed Vegeta far more easily. But back to my main point, which is Frieza's death ball attacks. In fact, let's do a small thought experiment. Let's take Frieza's death ball that immediately obliterated planet Vegeta versus Frieza's death ball that mortally wounded Namek, but it took the planet a bit to actually explode. Which is more powerful? Or how about if Frieza's death ball from his first form was flying through space and collided with Frieza's final form death ball that killed Namek eventually, which would destroy the other? One has a hard feat of easier destruction, but the other was created by Frieza in a vastly more powerful state. I would actually argue that despite the feat, Frieza's final form death ball had more power, just less destructive capability. He does say he held back too much, but that could mean either power or destructibility, and the blast did detonate the planet's core regardless. This, coupled with numerous other times in the series where a weaker character makes an attack with a larger blast radius than a stronger character, means that at a certain threshold of power, destruction becomes about control. Though what is inconsistent is various minute feats, like Frieza slicing through much of Namek with just his 2 fingertips, or when someone makes the entire planet shake when powering up. However, one could make the argument that when powering up, if one makes the planet shake, that simply means their power is so large that they can't keep it fully in check, even if a weaker character could potentially shake a planet as well. But this leads me back to my original point, which is when planets explode. If we go back to Frieza's destruction of Namek, he held back because he was afraid of the planet's detonation. And this is actually a running theme with various villains. Destroying a planet one is on is really risky, not just because you lose oxygen or atmosphere, but also because a planet acts as a celestial bomb of immense proportions in Dragon Ball. Various characters in the series are frightened at the prospect of being caught in the detonation of a planet, even if they themselves have the power to destroy a planet. Something happens that makes it inherently dangerous, even to super beings like Frieza and Cell. For the latter, I can also think of when Cell was frightened by Goku's instant transmission Kamehameha, even though Cell himself could breathe in space. He was not only concerned about Goku's attack in general, but what it would do to the planet, because Earth exploding was a threat even to him, and at the time he could not use the instant transmission. That was the main threat in Goku's gambit with that attack. It's difficult to say what power level one needs to not be destroyed by a planet's destruction. Super Perfect Cell was less worried about harming the Earth, yet at the same time, it is possible he was merely going to destroy the Z-Fighters and then fly away and destroy the planet. And then we have Kid Buu, who clearly didn't care, though one could make the argument as well that he was simply unhinged enough to not care about his own life. So it could be someone as strong as Super Perfect Cell, to someone like Kid Buu, to potentially even being above them in power. We really don't know. But remember that detonating a planet in an instantaneous blast is always risky to anyone caught in that blast. The reason Vegeta was not worried when he fired his Gallic gun, as I mentioned earlier, is likely the fact that he was weak enough to where he knew his blast would not destroy the Earth instantly, and since he also cannot breathe in space unlike Frieza, Cell, or Buu, he was merely going to mortally wound the core like Frieza, kill Goku, and grab his Saiyan pod and flee before the planet's detonation. Speaking of Vegeta, something tangentially related to this is when he utilized his final flash on Cell. Clearly the blast was immensely powerful. However, he narrows the beam and its destructive capability at the last second, while not compromising the beam's potency, which is another good example of curbing the destructive capability of a Ki Blast while keeping the Ki Blast powerful. On a final note, it's hard to ascertain the maximum destructibility of certain characters at certain levels of power. King Piccolo could blow up a city, and that seemed to be the extent of his destructive capabilities. However, perhaps not, because Roshi does blow up the moon in his max power form. Though granted, perhaps the Kamehameha was uniquely strong from the max power form and King Piccolo's city destruction was just a casual blast from his hand, and so it wouldn't be his strongest blast. It's hard to say. However, then we get to Vegeta, who was very prepared to blow up the Earth, with a power of, I'd say, 15,000 to 16,000 since he was somewhat tired. And then we have Frieza, who can do it without even bothering to power up. Then, of course, there is Super Perfect Cell with his Kamehameha that could consume the entire solar system, which is so many magnitudes above a mere planet buster. And still, we don't even know if that was the extent of his own power. But to reiterate, at a certain point of power, a Ki Blast's destructive capability is not necessarily equal to its effectiveness. Planetary explosions are incredibly dangerous even to beings who can breathe in space, and by the end of the series, there is no telling the amount of mass or space a character could obliterate, but it's easily more than an entire solar system. Alright guys, I think that's about everything I have to say today. Hope you enjoyed the video. Always remember to like, comment, and share please, and subscriptions are always welcome. Also, I have the channel's Patreon in the description below if you want to help chip in a few bucks. Thanks everyone.